Hey everybody, this is Perch. Let's get to this mail. It says filler books intentionally. All right. It says we're going to read this mail here. It says, "Hey Perch, one of your common points. I think by that you mean a point you repeat over and over again until somebody's sick of it. One of your common points is companies need a plan. And you look at these decisions and you say it feels like there is no plan, especially with some of these go nowhere, sell like crap stories that get minimal marketing. Might I offer up an alternative, please? That is the plan. The plan from these companies is to hold on to market share even if the books suck. A lot of companies will pump out crappy product or jump on trends just to retain that market share and not get squeezed out by competitors. I think if DC, for instance, only published their genuine hits, their publishing schedule would look a lot more like Image. You're probably right about that. Although keep in mind that Image is publishing sometimes 60 to 70 books a month to DC's 80. So it's not as big a difference as you might think. Image is definitely part of the problem of shoving way too much shit out into the market. But anyway, let's get back to the mail. It says, perhaps there's some sense of the company just saying, we don't even care. We cannot fall behind Image. Just publish something until we can get Johns and Snyder back. Now, with this dawn of DC, I feel this way even more. I look back on the last 2 years of DC, and it feels exactly like they just wanted to hold on to market share until they could do something big and genuinely ambitious, which it seems they're trying now. The alternative is they genuinely believed all their future state stuff would land, and this is their apology tour akin to Rebirth killing DCU. I think it is kind of that, to be honest. What do you think? Are filler books on purpose? Like when Apple released a bunch of slightly modified devices to bide time until their next big thing, like the iPhone 5C of comics. Ouch. That hits home. They know it's not their best. They know something better is on the way, but they also want their market position share. Okay, an interesting concept, and I think by and large, correct one. The difference, the thing I would argue with there is I don't necessarily believe that they know something bigger is coming. Now, one obvious kind of example, or an example where the company admitted it, is with X-Men. So the X-Men, Bendis had been on the X-Men, and then you had Charles Soule was on the X-Men. You had this kind of weird, awkward part where the X-Men and the Inhumans were kind of dicking around together. And you had this, this terrible event that sold really poorly. By that time, Marvel was figuring out that, maybe they didn't need to do the Inhumans, and that was a dumb idea. And so you had a bunch of things going on there. And so they got in their heads that they should probably try and put some real momentum behind the X-Men. There was rumblings that Disney was going to try and buy Fox, and that, they were going to come to a working agreement with them and all the rest. So let's try and do something. So they go get Jonathan Hickman, the architect behind, Fantastic Four and then the Avengers and then Secret Wars. And they're like, hey, let's have you do something super big for the X-Men. And he starts working. And then I don't know if he's late or, Marvel's late or he started reading comics. And like, what the hell is with all this alternate timeline shit? I don't even know what's going on. I'm going to need more time. I don't know what exactly went on there. But basically the plan of, I believe, October of, I don't remember the year now, 2018, 2019, one of those, one of those years, was his scheduled launch time. And that was the bigger, better thing that Marvel was excited to do with Hickman. But what happened was he wasn't ready. And so they're like, well, we can't, just stop publishing comics. We need to hold on to our share. So we're going to trick our readers, and I maintain that is exactly what it was, a trick. We are going to trick our readers into thinking that, the next big thing is this launch that's happening with Matt Rosenberg and Kelly Thompson and I think Ed Brisson and there's somebody else, a new X-Office. And they did a big relaunch, a bunch of variant covers, and this is the X-Men of the future, and this is a very big deal, and it's going to feature the return of Nate Gray because that's a great idea, and then it's going to lead into Age of X-Men, which is going to be like Age of Apocalypse, only hippie and kind of indicative of what's going on. We got this Leah Williams person who's going to come in and write a bunch of comics, and that's going to be a big deal too. And all this stuff was going on. And Marvel knew at the time that they were filling time. They were basically holding on to market share until in August of the following year, basically less than a year, Hickman could come in and actually launch what would become House of X, Powers of 10, and the entire thing that we're seeing now. So that is what you're describing. Basically, that it was a filler book. They knew it was a filler book, and they didn't want to lose market share, so they went with that until the bigger, better thing came along. Now, the difference, I think, to Future State and Dawn of DC and everything else is I don't believe that DC thinks that Future State was crap and that they were just waiting until Dawn of DC came along. I think that they legitimately felt like this was a good plan and something to try, and that they should do it. Clearly, that's not the case. It didn't work out that way. But that's kind of what they believed was going on. So what I do think is true though is if you look at the publishers, I think they think in their heads, we have to cram out 70 odd books a month because that's what it takes to maintain our position. So 70 books a month, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to keep doing that. Whether it sells, doesn't sell, who knows? 70 books a month, there you go. And so I do think that there's a certain level of we don't know what to do. We're going to just shove out books anyway. Some of these are filler. We can put these, creators on 3-month contracts. Why not? That'll work. And that's what they've done. And I think it's a bad strategy. I think it's a very transparent strategy. I think it's one that absolutely is suffering from the laws of not just diminishing returns, but no returns in some cases. But that is where it's at. That's what's happened. So, but I don't think there's this. I don't think people sit around a table and go, "Hey, we've got this big thing coming, so let's just put out a bunch of shit until that big thing arrives." I don't think it's ever stated that way. I think that they don't often know what the next big thing is, but I think that they believe that they need to keep cramming out comics anyway in order to maintain market share. And I'm sure on some level they know some of these efforts are not their best, but I also think a lot of the people involved in making them are, not making a lot of money. They're not trying to do their best, or in many cases they don't even know what their best is. Here's something probably pretty damning. A lot of comic creators, I think, are with that people really go after for being woke or dumb or whatever it happens to be. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what a good title is. They know that they were the person who was affordable enough for the publisher to buy to do this book, and they're cramming out something. And maybe they do love Marvel and DC. They grew up with it. It's fun. But these are not people with any kind of long-lasting career plan. Certainly within a Marvel or a DC, but probably not in comics either. They're there because they need a job and they're willing to work cheap, for lack of a better word. No, this isn't everybody, but it is probably more people than you think fit into this category. So, I think that there's certainly filler comics. I think there's also filler people. There's people who are just kind of keeping the lights on until something better comes along, something hits. I think the thing that's hurting comics right now is that once upon a time there was a good feeder system that you'd get some of these people in there and they would grow to be kind of powerhouses, just like when Jim Shooter started at 13. I don't know. The myth of John Shooter's age when he started comics continues to evolve over time. But it was young, super, super young. This guy starts in comics. And, in many cases in today's world, it would probably screw up. And he would not have a career. He would write a couple things. It wouldn't go well. He'd be kind of quietly drummed out of the industry. But there was enough of a system around him to, train him, give him tools in which he can improve, try different things, figure out other ways to help comics. I mean, there was a mechanism, I guess, behind him, around him, that allowed him to grow in his career. My comment is, what is that mechanism now? So if we're talking about filler books, I think you also have to talk about filler people who are there because, somebody needs to sit in that chair. Somebody needs to cram out a book to keep our market share of 70 titles a month. Who that person is, it really doesn't matter. Will they work cheap? That's the important part. Okay, If they'll work cheap, then fuck it, put them in. And that I think sums up the comic industry maybe more than it should. Disclaimer. Of course, there are people outside of this. There are people who are not being paid peanuts. There are also people who are genuinely passionate about comics who want to do the right thing. Absolutely, all those things are true. It is not black and white. It's not everybody sucks or everybody is wonderful. There's a mix, like in anything. But I guess I often get to, it's why I probably do the videos around, hey, where's the pay at? A good way to maybe ask the question is, where is the training at? Where are the opportunities? And a lot of people talk about Jim Shooter as being an incredible talent, and he was. But Jim Shooter, in his interviews, if you listen to him, there were several, he doesn't just say he was perfect and he entered into comics and then didn't need to learn anything. There was nobody who taught him a single thing. He just was able to go in and just be amazing every day, and every day he got more amazing out of magic and luck. No, he freely admits, I mean, it's not even admitting, he freely explains that there were lots of people around him, people, process, and tools that allowed him to get better. And he took advantage of those to make himself better. That's a good thing. What is that system now? Does that system exist now? I don't think it does. That to me is probably the big question mark in comics at the moment of what structure exists exactly to make better writers, better creators, better artists, better editors, better decisions? Is there a structure? Anyway, thank you very much for the email. Yes, there are filler books. There are also filler people. Probably not as thoughtful as maybe you lay out, but they're there. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.